So in this eye-opening video, we're going to talk about a shocking statistic which says that 70% of the employees lie on their resumes. What causes this kind of a alarming trend? So join me today to explore the reasons behind these fabrications and the common types of resume lies and the potential consequences that both employers and the employers faces in this phase of it. So I'll also be talking about some expert insights, real life stories and tips on how to mitigate these kind of issues in your recruiting journey. So it's so important for an employer or a job seeker to understand the phenomenon as it's crucial in this competitive job market. So don't miss out on this essential discussion which helps you to approach the hiring or your job applications. So as an employer, when you hire somebody or interview somebody, you would think that, okay, so this person is coming with a true experience and you really wanted to onboard them with the kind of skills that they have, or you at least invest the time to talk to them to understand more about it based on whatever they outline in the resume. So imagine if they have outlined something which is just inflated just to crack that interview or just to crack that screening process. It would disappoint any employer, right, for that matter. And I've seen numerous cases of this sort where people used to claim that they have worked with so-and-so organization and worked on so-and-so projects, but ultimately when we get them on board, they don't even know how to operate or use MS Outlook, as simple as it. So imagine this person comes as a cyber expert and do not even know how to use Outlook. That surprises you, right? So clearly, so when we investigated, so we realized that this is not the same person who attended the interviews, and it was a clear case of impersonation by someone else. So instead of him, someone else joined the interview call and cracked the interview, but instead the onboarding day there was someone else. So we didn't realize it until the candidate joined for weeks together, because the interviewer and the hiring manager were not the same, because of course we are a large organization, so we didn't have the same mechanism to have all those interviews done only by the hiring manager. So we used to spread across the bandwidth to different hiring managers who used to make the decisions across the board for the organization. So typically that used to operate, and this has been a problem for many years, and as on today in 2024 it still stands so true. So as an employer or a recruiter, imagine you're getting this person onboarded. There's a lot of time investment, there is a lot of energy that you put in, there is a lot of time or money investment that you have done, and ultimately you know this person is coming with a fake experience or has inflated some sort of a thing. Of course, the organizations have a thorough onboarding background check investigations that happen, but ultimately some or the other way they may be caught, they may not be caught until they really get onboarded. So imagine what kind of issue we are dealing with here. This has been one of the major challenges when I used to start hiring way back about 15 years ago. So this used to be this. I used to hire people for SAP labs and especially for Java folks, and I was pretty new at that point in time, and I didn't even know how to differentiate between a fake experience versus somebody who had genuinely worked in. You always used to call everybody that says, okay, I've worked on Java or J2EE, and I used to realize only upon submitting it to the recruiter, they come back and say that, oh, this person seems to be a fake candidate or fake, as portrayed a fake experience sort of thing. So they used to figure out exactly what authentic experience looks like versus a fake experience looks like. So but I used to get surprised, how did they know? As a recruiter or anybody who is part of the hiring process, how do you really identify it, right? So resume talks a lot about it. A lot of people who state that, okay, I have 2 years of experience, write so much in the resume. They load it with keywords, they load it with so much of experience. I achieved XYZ, I have done 50% of the sales increase, I've brought the organization about $200 million growth and all of it. So you, as a recruiter, I think you will have to question yourself, what kind of scope a 2-year person would have in an organization? What kind of scope would a 20-year person would have in an organization, right? So that clearly outlines the kind of responsibilities a 2-year guy versus a 20-year guy, right? So obviously you would probably give more responsibilities, or your expectations would be much more higher on a 20-year guy and not on a 2-year guy. So imagine the 2-year guy comes and says, talks about very high statistics and holds a huge inflated titles. I think that's your red flag right at that moment. I think that's where you need to stop and scrutinize a little more on it, probe a little more on it. You may be able to thoroughly get those information in the screening process, or you may not be able to, but sometimes if you are able to, then you know whether to proceed or not. If you do not get the concrete information, I think that's where you need to thoroughly assess in the next step, which is your interview process. I think that's where you need to give your inputs to your hiring manager, stating that, okay, so what is that? You could probe a little more on this and this aspect, so that there is a second level of screening which is thoroughly happening on the aspect that you are not able to derive a conclusion to. Right? And the lies could be in various forms, like exaggerating the skills, inflating the job titles, fabricating degrees, and also providing statistics or studies that highlight the extent of the issue. And in the Forbes survey, so a lot of candidates have admitted that they have lied on the resumes, and some of the interesting lies that they have outlined are embellishing the responsibilities in general, basically inflating their responsibilities exactly to the job ad that they may be applying toward, and they agreed upon inflating their job titles, fabricating how many people they have managed, which is even interesting, right? Some people may not have the team management experience, but if the job demands that, oh, you need to have a team management experience, and they might say that, oh, I manage 20 people or 30 people or whatsoever it is, just to give that vibe that yes, they have that managerial or leadership skills. And lastly, the other one is about inflating metrics and accomplishments that have achieved. So like I said, you're just saying that, okay, I have done 50% year-on-year sales and on the growth aspect. So I think many of them do it clearly. So while we recruiters say that you need to really give tangible results, it doesn't mean that you inflate the tangible results into whatever number that you want. But because in the interviews you would be clearly asked, what is it, how did you come to that conclusion, or how did you actually achieve those results? So you'll get caught some way or the other. I think a lot of people get stressed with a career gap as well. Of course, we'll talk a little more about this topic in detail at a later point, but I think people should not really care or stress about having a career gap as long as it's a genuine thing. I think employers have been understanding about it. I've hired a lot of people who have had a career gap. Back in India and even in Canada, I still hire people with career gaps, and I don't question them. So why do they have it? Probably some hiring manager may want to know what the candidate says, but otherwise they don't make it a decision based on the career gap. If someone has versus someone who doesn't have, the candidate should stop worrying about it and not lie or cover it up in any manner for that. I'd like to share an example of a large organization which tried hiring a data analytics related professional. So they have screened through numerous candidates through their screening process, and then ultimately interviewed a bunch of them, and they interviewed a XYZ person, and the person turned out to be excellent in the interviews, and there were no red flags that really turned out to be alarming, that they had doubts about onboarding the candidates. So everybody liked him, and they went ahead and proceeded to onboard the candidate, and they realized after onboarding that this person had only 1/10 of what they claimed in the interview process. And forget about technical skills, I think the behavioral aspects of it turned out to be even more surprising. They were always disagreeing, they were very stubborn on their approach, and they were not teaming up with anybody. And I think the entire professional facade on the first day itself dropped off, which really surprised these hiring managers, the recruiters, and even the senior management for the kind of experience that they've had with this candidate, who they have filtered after looking at hundreds and thousands of candidates to having to onboard a few bunch of them, and this is how it turned out to be. So what do you think would have happened in this case, right? So typically organizations would try to have a soft corner, talk to the person and see if there is an aspect to coach this person, train them or bring them up to speed at the expectations, but there would be a minimal investment that they could do, because there are red flags everywhere, right from their competencies, right from the behavioral aspects of it, right? So ultimately, what do you think would would have happened with that XYZ person. So obviously the organization have terminated him. This creates a different aspect as well, because they would have that impression for a really long time, and anybody they try to interview next time to replace this person, they would see from the same lens. It's us as candidates who try to create these biases, because we give them the opportunities to create these kind of biases. I think as long as we're genuine in the interview process, as long as we claim that what we have is what is put in the resume, I think we should be good, and every organization should be good, and nobody gets into trouble. But while this sounds so philosophical, but ultimately there would be candidates who will continue to do the same what they want to do it, and the organization will continue to troubleshoot all these people and find new methods to identify them at one point or the other. To all those who are out there, so all that I would like to say today is, if you're a candidate or you're an employee of an organization, state only what you have done in your resume. Absolutely, the organizations are flexible these days, even in the earlier past as well. The organization used to see, okay, so you have 1 to 3 skills and you lack 4 5. Okay, fine, I can bring you on board and I will train you on the 4 5 skills. I've seen the organizations which are in large in nature, or even startups for that matter, they used to always compromise on certain aspects to take what they have and train or add that extra value into the candidate's portfolio. And I've seen numerous of such cases. I think you should not worry in inflating your resume. I think stop doing it. And for the employers, I think you need to thoroughly scrutinize, or the recruiters or the hiring managers, whoever it is, I think you need to thoroughly scrutinize. While the resume might look fancy, but that is not all. I think resume is state that, okay, who is best, and all those are only just first impressions. Well, those first impressions, will they be lasting impressions, is what I think those HR interviews or the technical interviews should really assess, right? So once you have somebody onboarded, regretting having them onboarded, I think it's too late for that. With that, I conclude, and thank you for watching Great Tales. Hope you like this video, and if you do, and if you have any sort of a similar experience, put it up in the comments, hit that like button, and subscribe for more of this content.